Welcome everyone. We are in Seattle today and we are meeting with my niece and nephew who are going to be having a baby soon, and we are excited to share a nuance of this. They've decided to raise the baby gender neutral, and I know it's something that as I've gone around the country people have had a lot of questions about, and so I asked them if they might be willing to share a little bit about their experience and how this kind of works. So we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation and share it with everyone. But I'll start off by telling you a little bit of my story. I had a child, well, she's 18 now, and when she was 2 and just started talking, she used to correct everybody. I'm not a her, I'm a him. And people would say, I don't know what to do with that. And I said, well, those are pretty strong words. I think she's being quite clear with you that this is her belief system. And she, I remember she, the child goes on the potty for the first time and they get to choose any underwear that they want to purchase. Well, she wanted superhero underwear. That almost 20 years ago, we didn't have choices for everybody. So we had to buy boys' briefs, which she thought were very practical for a variety of reasons. And then I get the teachers, she would go to like a preschool program and they would say, do you know that your daughter wears boys' briefs? Well, yeah, I bought them for her, so yeah, I'm pretty sure she likes Spider-Man and Batman. And she showed up to ballet class the one time she took ballet class, and every week she would wear a different superhero costume. And the teacher finally came to me, she goes, I really don't know your daughter's name because every week she's a different character. I said, well, welcome to our world. But it all culminated when she was 5. And she offered to wear a dress to our wedding to Chris, and she stood in front of the pastor, and the pastor says, you look like a beautiful princess. And she says, no, I don't. I look like a boy in a dress. And it wasn't offensive. She was genuinely confused. So we learned along the way that, everybody has a different experience. Unfortunately, we had family members that would throw away her clothing, that would make her repeat that she's a girl. Mm-hmm. And she said to me one day, she says, Mom, I'm not stupid. I know what my gender is. I just don't really agree with it. Fast forward, now she's an adult, and she likes where she is. She likes who she is, and she's this great balance and mix. But it was very hard. Mm-hmm. It was very hard to be in a place where people didn't accept differences or viewpoints. So I'm really curious how you guys got to this decision and how you've thought through it.
Well, I don't know if we had like a culminating, this is the point that we're gonna just do a gender neutral thing. I think that we've always kind of been on that page of we have a lot of friends that are trans, people who question their gender identity, people who say they're non-binary, and I think you see a lot of that in Seattle in general. So we're definitely in no ways experts on this, because we both kind of I consider myself a woman, Alex considers himself a man, but we were kind of why are, in the same way that you're talking about, I can't remember your daughter's name.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, but that being called a pretty princess versus oh, look at this guy, he's strong and tough. It's very it seems almost pointless when you're raising kids. Why people will come up and be like, oh, what a beautiful daughter you have, but they'll use different adjectives to describe different children and kind of influence their development that way.
We have a friend coming.
Yeah. He really likes being on the phone. So in some ways we know that when our kid is born that there will be an assigned gender at birth. There's almost no way to get around that. Our getting enrolled in school, people coming up to you, even a baby could be a month old and be like, oh, is it a boy or is it a girl? And that's kind of just how we immediately just are able to label things and people, and we're kind of well, screw it, in a way. So I mean, so our plan is just to kind of go with the gender neutral they, but at the same time, I know that people will still buy clothes of all different varieties, and I plan to throw this kid in whatever people hand me as well. My best friend was like, I don't care what this gender is, you know, like, cool, gender neutral, but I'm still buying a sparkly pink dress. And I was like, that's perfect. Yeah.
I love it. Do people ever ask you questions as to how you handle it?
At this point, I mean, I don't get too many questions, but when I answer that, like, oh, we don't really care about the gender or anything, they stop asking. So, yeah.
That is true. We often do ask people, what do you want?
Mm-hmm. Well, I've had people, I think I have had different reactions because people ask, oh, you know, do you know what the gender is? And when I'm like, we're just going with gender neutral they, they're like, okay. So they're definitely like, I get where you're going with, but I want to know, you know, because they're coming into their perspective of like, this is how I categorize people, like male or female. And so when we stop that, I think people kind of have that like, okay, like I'm with it and I'm on board, but I'm also like, that's not what I would do.
Yeah, I think like when it comes to pronouns, people still think of they as like a third option as opposed to like a baseline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
But I mean, we use single pronoun they all the time. You know, like, oh, did they bring the mail by? Or, you know, like when you don't know the gender of somebody, people default into it really easily. But when you have to make that conscious decision, I think that's when people are like, wait, we should have something ascribed to this person.
It does throw off. Like you posted something on Facebook and asking, I think, do they look like me? And immediately, and I know this is funny, but I caught myself. I thought, are there two? Did I miss something? Are there? And I was like, oh, no, this is the pronoun that they're using. But it did throw me because of the plurality, not because of the gender neutral part. But that is hard because it you're right. We use it in our day-to-day language, but not about a specific person typically. Mm-hmm. That led me down to it, and then it didn't feel good. So I kind of wondered, how are we going to make that work? I mean, do you think in our language we're going to start thinking of it as singular and plural, or do you think that there will be a new term that is used?
I mean, already we do use it for a specific person if that person is like a more abstract thing.
Right.
Like the example given, did they bring the mail by?
Right.
Is a single person. So I think it like is practice and just making it normal.
Well, and then within the last week, Merriam-Webster added they as a
did?
singular pronoun.
Yes.
And I was like, when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know they were going to do that. It's interesting. I mean, it definitely brings a lot of questions to the table for people. And I think you're right. It's I haven't found that people have an issue. It's that they're not quite sure how to package it in their mind. And so it's a new way of packaging. I can imagine immediately when you talk about sparkle dresses that someone is going to think, wait, but if it's a boy, are you still going to put it in the sparkle dress?
Yeah. And I think people do have that hesitation of like, oh no, like, you know, you can be gender neutral, but you have to dress this kid literally all in gray.
Right, right.
But it, you know, I've read other people still, you know, using she or he pronouns for their child, but still kind of dressing their kid into different clothing. And it's funny that they talk about their experiences of like, oh, you know, I had these older women come up to me and say, oh, what a cute girl, and then correcting them like, oh, actually it's a boy. You know, my kid's a boy, but, you know, we just figured pink was the color today. And their responses to that are like, well, boys can wear pink, you know, but it's such an innate reaction to kind of be like, you are a boy, you are a girl, and then I'm going to change my language and my response based on that. So like, yeah.
Well, and I think, what comes up sometimes for people is a lot of times from a religious perspective. So I was just in Temple Square in Salt Lake City. Beautiful place. Amazingly family oriented, significant positive energy. I cannot say anything except glowing remarks. One thing noticed, every woman was in a dress. To the point where I actually started looking to see, am I going to find any women not in a dress? And I didn't find any. There were very clear lines of gender roles. And so I think for those communities, it would be very confusing, because when life decisions are based on your gender, how does that evolve? And how does that marry up? I think people have questions as to how this will, because I think you may be at the forefront, but this is becoming more and more common.
Yeah, and I mean, like let's say our child is assigned female and they hit the age of 4 or 2 even. And
they tell you quick.
They'll tell you quick, right? And they say, well, and I want to be the gender I was assigned. Great. I have no issue with that. Like, and I think that's what's nice about this choice is like, we're just letting you exist how you want to be, and you can tell us, and we can respect it. And it'll be really, it's like we don't have to play this guessing game. We can literally just hear from you eventually. I mean, it'll be like 2 years, 3 years down the road, I'm sure. But
well, it may be more than that. I know for my daughter, at 2 years it was one answer. At 15 it was a different answer. And she'll talk a lot about how, I remember as a child I would say these things, but now that I'm an adult, I don't feel that way at all. And so I think the development of life is very interesting to watch. But like you, I took a very open stance. Like, well, she's going to go one direction or another, and frankly, we're just going to love and raise her. But and it's interesting because she certainly identifies female strongly and is an Army ROTC. So I think both sides of her have come out, which is really what it is. Well, I have one last question. It's a really important one. I don't know the answer. So Chris and I have decided, as we will be great aunt and uncles, so we have given ourselves the term of granty. I got way better on this term. And Chris is grumpy. So he totally loses. And then I realized, is it a niece or a nephew? Is it a great niece or nephew? We don't have a term. And I can't go with great they. So I need a term.
What I've heard, my sister was like, I can't wait to meet my nibbling.
Nibbling, okay.
So like you have the N and it's like sibling, but like, so N, sibling, I'm not sure how sold I am on it quite yet, but
we'll
I
use
was
it
like,
as a starting point.
Cool.
Well, you all have combined your last names.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And now we have to combine this name. So I see where it's going. All right.
So
nibbling's our starting point.
Nibbling's the starting point, I think.
That probably works well little. I'm curious if it still works at 18.
We'll see. We'll see.
The verdict is still out. Well, thank you so very much.